Welcome back. This is lesson 4 of module 5, the last lesson in this module. Compare proportional relationships. The I can statement says I can identify and compare proportional relationships presented in different ways. So if you notice, there's no spark your learning, there's no build understanding, they're starting right out in this step it out. This is a little bit of review of all the things that you've kind of done and looking at proportional relationships in different ways. So let's look at number 1. Three friends, Brooklyn, Lincoln, and Taylor, competed in a race over the weekend. Which runner ran the fastest? A. Choose a point in the table and use it to calculate the pace in miles per hour at which Lincoln ran. So if you look at this, so they show Lincoln's information in this table. Brooklyn, they just tell you she ran at a rate of 7 miles per hour. So they give you her unit rate, and that's all they really tell you. And then Taylor, they give his information in this graph here. So they show you the three different modalities or ways of presenting information. So they want you to first look at Lincoln's information and calculate his pace in miles per hour. And then in B, they say Taylor's pace is the same as the unit rate, which can be calculated by dividing the y-coordinate by the x-coordinate. Find a point on the graph and use it to calculate the pace in miles per hour at which Taylor ran. So they're asking you to find Taylor's unit rate. And you can find the point on the graph. It's there somewhere that shows you how many miles per 1 hour for the unit rate. C, the unit rates you found can be compared to the rate at which Brooklyn ran because they give you that in unit rate right there. Which runner ran the fastest? Complete the sentences. Brooklyn ran at a rate of this many miles per hour. This person ran at the fastest because his or her rate is the fastest at blank miles per hour. So fill in those using the information that you've gathered and you've created doing A and B. And then turn and talk. If you were going to present each runner's rate in the same way for 3 hours, which representation, graph table, or verbal description would you choose and why? That's just something to think about. It may be different for every person depending on how you process information the best. So take a minute, pause the video, work on number 1, and then we can go on to number 2. All right, let's look at number 2. A sailboat and a motorboat each are traveling at a constant rate. The sailboat speed is summarized by the graph. So here's the graph of the sailboat speed. Time here, distance here. The motorboat's distance in terms of time is represented by this equation. So they're giving you two different ways of representing information. Y equals 60x, where x is the time in hours and y is the distance traveled in miles. Compare the speeds of the two boats. So one thing you can do if you want to, if it helps, is you can create a table or a graph for that equation and see how it looks compared to this graph. You could create a table for this graph and a table for this equation, compare the two tables. There are a lot of different ways to do that. So after traveling 1 hour, the sailboat has gone. So first, wait, let's go back here. Determine the unit rate for the sailboat. Then they're going to have you fill in this sentence, fill in the blanks. After the traveling 1 hour, the sailboat has gone this many miles. So the unit rate of the sailboat is this many miles per hour. So these actually should be the same number. And then they say B, determine the unit rate for the motorboat. So here's the equation. You can kind of figure out the unit rate in the best way possible. Substitute 1 hour for the equation y equals 60x. Oh, they're going to help you. So y equals 60 times 1. Y equals, so when x equals 1, what does y equal? The unit rate of the motorboat is your answer from here. Which boat traveled faster? How do you know? You may be able to guess, just sailboat versus motorboat, but not all motorboats always go at their top speed. So D, if you were to graph the motorboat's progress on the same axes as the sailboat's progress, so if you did your motorboat's progress here, graphed it here with the sailboat, Would the motorboat's line be steeper or less steep than the sailboat's line, and why? So that's for you to think about and write down your answer there. Then if you want to, you could do the turn and talk. How would you need to change the graph if you wanted to represent the progress of both boats over 3 hours on the same graph? So go ahead and work on those. Pause the video here, and then when you're finished, you can go on to the next pages. So here we have number 3. It's this last question in the Step It Out. A grocery store and a street vendor are each selling bananas by the pound. You can buy 2 pounds of bananas from a street vendor for $1.62. The cost of bananas at a grocery store is shown in the photo. So here they tell you at the grocery store it's 79 cents per pound. So here's the grocery store. They want you to complete this table. If you know it's 79 cents for 1 pound, how much for 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, and 8 pounds. And then they want you to find the cost of bananas, cost of a pound of bananas. So they want you to find that unit rate from the street vendor. So they tell you up here, the street vendor, you can buy 2 pounds of bananas from the street vendor for $1.62. So here, if you know it's $1.62 for 2 pounds, they want you to solve for X. How many dollars is it for 1 pound? So the unit rate, that would go here once you get your answer to that, first when you solve for X here. 5 pounds of bananas costs this many because now you know the cost per pound. And so you'd multiply that by 5. And then D, the grocery store or street vendor, you circle 1, is selling bananas at a lower price. If you purchase 5 pounds of bananas, you save blank dollars purchasing bananas for the lower price. And here you have this one. Once you've completed the table, you'll know how much it costs for 5 pounds of bananas at the grocery store. And then once you solve B and C, you'll be able to compare those prices and answer D. So once you complete that, pause the video, work on number 3. When you're finished with that, you can go on to the check understanding and do that independently. Then here's the on your own, so you work on that independently as well. So this time there's actually a 3rd page for the on your own, so complete this page. And then here, this homework again is optional. You don't have to do that unless you feel like you need a little more practice. Do the test prep and the spiral review. And because this is the end of Module 5, we want you to do this Module 5 review. It's always good to work on this and just check your understanding of the different vocabulary and concepts and skills from this module. So after this, we'll move on to Module 6.